It's time to talk Jazz basketball with the CEO of the Utah Jazz and NBA legend, Danny Ainge. With Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jazz drop one to the Clippers, 115-103. Trade deadline looming. A lot of news around the NBA. Danny Ainge kind enough to join us as always. And Danny, I got to imagine this is your, it feels like probably your playoff time of year as a guy that helps run a front office. This is when the phone calls are really ringing, correct?
Yeah, I would say like draft and free agency are probably the top, and trade deadline is the next. But yeah, it's a busy time. It's not quite as complicated because you know everybody that everyone's talking about. And so, but it's very busy. Yeah, busy time. Fun.
How are you doing outside of that, Mr. Ainge? You having a good time?
I'm doing great, except I was kind of bummed about the news that you're leaving us, bro.
You and me both, Danny. You and me both.
Danny, not everybody. Danny, you've had an opportunity to live out your dream your whole life. Not everybody can just sit there and play around with sports. Like I got to go be a big boy. I got to go find my footing in this world, Danny. And I don't know what it is exactly, but we're going to go do it.
Okay, good for you. Congratulations. It's awesome.
And by the way, if you need somebody else to scout basketball players, let me know. I can at least help you measure them.
Yes.
Like, oh, he's certainly 7'2", Danny. I'm positive of that.
That hand length, I can stretch out that tape measure with the best of them.
Hey, I wanted to start out by asking you about players that hold teams hostage. Was that something that happened back in your time? And if not, when did that start to evolve into a player being able to hold team hostage?
I don't know, but it's probably been going on for 20 years. It hasn't been much before that. I mean, it used to be a guy like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson didn't really want to join forces with all the best players in the league and build super teams. They wanted to beat them. And it was just a different mentality. And I don't know when it actually started, but it's probably 20 years it's been going on where players do hold a lot of power. They're the big draws. The stars are the big draws in the NBA, and they do have some power and leverage.
So, again, I know there's news out there, and we want to be careful and not get you into trouble. So this is just a hypothetical conversation here in terms of if you have dealt with this or, you know of people that have dealt with a player on your roster saying, I am demanding a trade, or his representation says, we are demanding a trade. And you're like, well, no, I've got a contract here that says you're here. From a prideful standpoint, you're like, no, I'm not going to trade you. Like, how hard is that when you're running a team and you got a player who says, yeah, I want out. And you're like, I don't want to give you that. I don't want to honor that. But you understand he does have power. I mean, I got to imagine that's a crazy moment for a GM.
Yeah, no, those are difficult things to navigate. And, obviously the organizations have power too. And so it just depends on how much you want to exercise and which way. You want to appease the players all the time. That would be tough. And not listen to them is not right either. So I think a lot of conversation needs to be had. I don't think it's just as simple as you do it or you don't do it, but those are difficult, and each one of them are different types of decisions.
Every one of them extremely unique, I'm sure, very unique, and so it's always hard to kind of throw an umbrella over everything. But I am curious, when this does happen, behind the scenes, is there some amount of, do we really want this? Do we want to deal with this? Does it create just a bit of a negative logo for a player that is doing that?
Well, so it depends on how, Hans. I think that sometimes it's an agent just negotiating, and they'll use every tactic they can to get a better deal. And so sometimes it's just pressure, and they have a deal somewhere else. I mean, I wish we lived in a world where, there wasn't people talking to other teams like you're not supposed to, but I wish that were were the case, but that doesn't feel like it's the very realistic anymore.
When something like this starts brewing and you've got a player on your team, how much I got to imagine GMs already know what's going on. They've got a vibe. They're talking to agents as well. They see this building up. Do all of a sudden everybody throw things against the wall thinking you have to do something so we can get him with pennies on the dollar? What's that like when all of a sudden the phone calls start coming?
Yeah, I mean, every situation is unique, like Hans said. I think that it's just conversation that leads to a lot of internal conversation about where we are and what we're doing. And sometimes the complaints of players wanting out, the whole thing, not getting enough shots, not getting enough playing time, not getting to play the position he wants to play, not getting paid enough or being disrespected or, wants to live in a city closer to his hometown. I mean, it could be anything of why players want out. And sometimes, like I said, agents use them in negotiations and to try to just get better deals and use leverage.
Danny, I can't even imagine what goes into making the decision on a max player, somebody that's going to occupy 25, 30% of your cap. What kinds of things play into that? Is it, and I'm just thinking back to my NFL days with Peyton Manning and going back to some of like the running backs that I've played with. Like, those guys were worth every penny because I knew them as people. And I'd go out with them, and you could see how they deal with everybody who's from somebody serving a plate of food to somebody that's pulling their car up for valet. And I could see the character. But when you're talking about these max players, guys that are going to control a huge percentage of your cap, how much of that goes into that decision?
Oh, yeah, character's big. How much they love basketball, how committed they are to basketball and committed to their teammates. Those things are big. The character is huge in that. And I can't, I've been fortunate in my career to, have guys max contracts that have earned it and deserved it. And great players, not perfect people, not perfect in every way, but so many of them are so young, but just, they have a desire to become great and to continue to improve and love for the game.
Because I got to imagine it's hard to make that decision of, yeah, we'll put up with this, I guess. We'll put up with these three things, I guess. This is going to be hard to put up with. But there's got to be a certain amount of talent where you do deal with some things.
No question. Sometimes they're no-brainers, and sometimes they're difficult. Absolutely.
Danny Ainge, kind enough to join us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You hear the term just along those lines, a contract year, where a guy's stats might get a little bit inflated when he knows he's going into free agency and he's playing games through injury that maybe he would not. Is that pretty easy to sniff out when you see a guy that might be a little bit more than he normally is because he's going into a contract year? And are you wary of that sometimes when signing a guy?
Yeah, that does happen. It happens both ways, too. Sometimes players put way too much pressure on themselves in those circumstances, and they play worse. Sometimes they try a lot harder and play harder, and, that's a concern, too. But, yeah, you gotta have your antennas up for all those options.
Danny, does the term somebody has to score the points, does that really exist in the NBA? And I ask that because when I'm sitting there evaluating talent, okay, and I'm watching a guy go off for 38 points in the NBA against the most elite defenders and length and speed in the world. And I watch a guy go for 38, and I'm like, that dude is incredible. And then somebody says to me, well, somebody's got to score the points. Does that have real truth and meaning?
Yeah, there's some interesting situations I've been in my career that I've witnessed and watched and all around the league, but in playoff series where, the microscope is really on. And that is, some players score the points and some players are being shut down. Like they got extra attention on them. They got the best defensive players on them. And so they have a subpar. And then another player who's left open because he's not a great shooter, all of a sudden he has a great game. And he gets the 38 points, and he makes lots of threes. Like you got to see what they're doing to stop them. We do the same thing when we're evaluating college players. Like there's the defense that one guy is facing is completely different than the guy that scores 30 on the other team that is making open shots because he's not drawing that attention yet in his career. So, how you score the points is huge, not just the number of points, but how you score them. And are you helping your teammates to become better? Are you helping your team win through those points scoring? All those things are important factors.
So when you are running a team, and I bring this up to a certain extent with Golden State, you're going to face Golden State. But the reason I ask you this, not specifically about the Warriors, but when you've got a player who has been so good for you and won championships, like when you brought the big three into Boston and then you realize, okay, we've reached the ceiling. We can't go any further, but you feel like you owe it to guys to keep them around and honor them, but you realize you might be doing that to the detriment of the team. How difficult is that to say, okay, I've got to do what's best for the organization, not necessarily what's best with the relationships, but I've got to think about winning championships, and we might need to find a way to move on or find a way to get some value out of you in the trades because, you're only going one direction and I need to move you while the getting's good. So how hard is that emotionally as a GM to try to make those difficult decisions?
Yeah, no, I've been in those situations as a player and as a GM, and they are difficult. And I think that it's your obligation to do what's best for the franchise. And, we did that in Boston when we made a big trade. We traded KG and Paul, who were, champions for us and great legends. And, they have their numbers retired in Boston now, but we did trade them, and that's how they got Tatum and Brown. Mm-hmm. So I think that you need to do what's best for the franchise, and it is as hard as it is to do, and hope that the players understand and those relationships can be rebuilt.
One last question for me, Danny, and sorry, we're getting into the weeds on a lot of different details.
I love it, though.
But this stuff's fascinating to me because I'm watching a certain situation right now where there's 3 elite players on the court, and 2 are really good at specific things. The third is really good at everything, but needs to be better at something. How hard is it for somebody, let's just say the high-end collegiate level or the front-end NBA level? I'm not talking about an old dog NBA vet, but a new NBA player or kind of an old and aging college player. How hard is it for them to learn a role and be able to fit in that role in the world of basketball? And I'll just give you, for instance, a guy that is a drive through the lane, maybe he's a search dribble guy or a drive through the lane, very forceful at the rim. And because of the 2 personnel that you got on the court with him, you need him to be a spot up. You need him to be a trail shooter, or you need him to be able to hit a certain range shot. And he's got to learn to be able to score without the ball in his hand. How hard is it for a basketball player at that level to adjust to what a coach needs and what might make him great in that moment?
Yeah, no, I think it could be difficult for some players. I think ideally, when you're building a team, you have better players than their roles. You have Byron Scott, who's playing with Magic Johnson and Kareem, who's and some teams might be averaging 25 to 30 points a game, but you got him as a guy that's like your 3rd or 4th option behind James Worthy. Like, that's ideal. You have players that are better than the roles they're playing, but better players can typically play lesser roles. It's difficult when you have people that are lesser talents that need to play better roles.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
But they can play different roles. But if you got shooters that can do a lot more than just shoot, it's better than having a shooter that is just a 3-and-D guy that, if you can play defense and shoot, and dribble and pass, but you don't get to do the dribbling and pass because you're playing with Magic Johnson, then, that's what is ideal if you can have those. Let's just get talented guys, the best talent you can get. And, sometimes they got to adjust their roles.
Up against Steph Curry, you played with legends, you've coached legends, you've had legends on your teams. One of the guys that I loved going early to a Jazz game when they would play this guy was Ray Allen. I just loved to watch Ray Allen shoot and pregame warmups. I could just sit there and watch him shoot all day. Steph Curry, incredible shooter. Where do you think Steph ranks in terms of just the beautiful shot, the way it looks, the result? Like, how do you rank him in terms of some of the best shooters? And I know this is an unfair question, but some of the best shooters in the history of the league.
I think he's one of the greats of all time, for sure, if not the greatest of all time. I mean, it's hard for me to get someone like Bird out of my mind just because I saw him make so many clutch shots, and he's 6'10", and the three-point line wasn't as prevalent, but the variety of left-hand hooks and high off the glass and such a variety of shots. And I think that's what Bird and Steph have in common, even though the kinds of shots they're shooting are different because of their size and the era. But I think there's a good debate on those two guys as the best shooters that I've ever seen.
Well, I appreciate it. We appreciate it as always. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and hopefully we can do it again next week.
You're the best big brother a guy could have. Thank you, Danny.
All right, Hans. Well, good luck in your news. Hope your dreams come true with this new job.
I'm sure will, man. I'm sure will, and I'll be in touch with you.
All right. See you guys.
There he is, Danny Ainge.